Going pretty well. Thanks. Let's check on Alex. Hi, before we begin, just a reminder, because we have our sign language interpreters, for all the board members and for all the presenters, please speak into your microphone, speak clearly, don't talk too fast, so that we can get it all done. So I just want to remind everybody about that so we can have it adequately conveyed by our sign language interpreters. Thank you. And please silence your phones. We're ready then, Alex.
You're gonna.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the August 14, 2019 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Mr. Irvine.
Here.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum of the committee with 5 members present, sir.
Our first order of business today is the approval of the committee minutes of July 17. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yeah.
Abstain? Correct.
Abstain.
Abstain, yes. Mr. Silva is abstaining, so that vote is approved with 4 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Silva.
Our next order of business is a review of the finance report. Presenter,
Yeah. If we could, Director Silva, we've got. We're honored this morning to have State Representative Louis Arroyo here. He wasn't able to make the last board meeting, but he's here this morning. I have the honor. I mentioned to him just a few minutes ago. I think I've known the rep for almost 30 years. And I said that too when Senator Sandoval was here. And you don't have a lot of friends these days that you can look back over the years and talk about a relationship that you've had with him and that you've known him for that period of time. But since I've been chair, which is almost 10 years now, there's never been a stronger advocate for mass transit. There's never been a stronger advocate for funding for mass transit than Representative Arroyo. And when you talk about the $45 billion capital bill, you talk about the money that was set aside for CTA, that wouldn't have been possible without his efforts. But again, he just didn't get on the bandwagon in terms of fighting for mass transit. Since I've known him, he has been fighting for mass transit. So we're honored to have him here this morning. And if he would mind coming up, I'd like for him to say a few words to the board and those that are here. Again, I just personally, on behalf of the board, want to thank him, not for the capital bill that just passed, but just for his years of commitment to mass transit, and again, for his continued friendship, as I mentioned, have known him for almost 30 years. And again, it's an honor to have you here this morning. So,
Thank you, Chairman.
All right.
First of all, I want to start with a little comment. The gentleman, the chair, said for the people that speak here to speak very slow. People that don't know me, I'm Puerto Rican and I talk fast. So could you bear with me? And if somebody could just pick up their hands and tell me to slow it down, I'll slow it down, because I do talk fast. And I'm in a hurry. So I'm even going to try to talk fast. So I'm going to try to talk a little slower. If I start stuttering, I'm trying to slow down too much. But thank you for being here this morning and having this invitation. It's always been an honor to be part of mass transit. I've been 12 years, or going on 13 years, feels like 20. And I've always, in the General Assembly, so I've always been part of mass transit. I remember when I first came to the General Assembly, I was the vice chair of the mass transit. with Julie Hamos. I don't know if you guys, some of you members, remember Chair Hamos. I was the vice chair, but I was doing kind of all the work, right? I remember with Blagojevich. I don't know if you guys remember that. Remember that gentleman? I came in more or less at those times, and he wanted to shut down CTA in my district. He wanted to slow down mass transit because, for whatever reason there was, we won't go into all those reasons he had in his mind to shut down mass transit. And I fought with that, and we didn't close the trains and the buses going down to Fullerton to the Brickyard. And after that, I've taken a passion of being able to work with yourself, Terry, and Derville Carter. Where is he? Derville? I was honored to be able to get a nice set of cufflinks that he wears and I wear. I'm going to another board meeting this morning at Metro, where the committee doesn't look like this committee. It's an honor to come and sit in front of a committee, a diverse committee. A lot of the mass transit agencies don't have a diverse committee. But I'm here today to tell you, congratulations for the job that you did coming down to Springfield, seeing me and advocating for a CTA. We were able to give the CTA, the RTA, $4.9 billion. That is nothing to shake a stick at. $4.9 million, which the CTA was doing projects. Derville brought a lot of money from D.C. when he came. There was projects getting done where there was no money. You know, everybody says there's no money. There's money, you just got to know where to find it, right? It's not always in Springfield. You have to keep going back to D.C., Derville. Don't just come down by us, please. You know, I think that the CTA did very well. Maybe all the points were not covered. It's never enough. It's never enough. The city has a lot of infrastructure problems, a lot of infrastructure dollars that they need. But there's always next year. You know, Chicago, the Cubs, and everybody always has that saying, it's always next year. But I think you guys did pretty good this year.
Absolutely.
And we won't have to wait another 10 years, right? Because usually government and the General Assembly, they think they have to wait 10 years. We cut it down. We not only got the $45 billion, the biggest in the nation these years, and we don't have to wait 10 years no more. Now it's going to be a 7-year span. So just after 5 or 6 years, we got to start ramping up to start looking for the other dollars and whatever the needs are going to be, because there's still going to be needs. I mean, Chicago is a very big city and has a lot of participation with taking people to work. I just came down Milwaukee Avenue, and there's a lot of people coming up and down Milwaukee Avenue on bicycles, you know. So, and then I came down, and then I took Grand Avenue, and there's a lot of people still out there using transportation. Can we get more transportation people to get on there? Maybe we have to lower the rates, maybe, Derville, so we could get on there. But I know that that's not the problem. We have to be able to keep it or even go up a little higher to be able to do the infrastructure. You still need a lot of infrastructure, especially downtown. So I'm here to thank you guys and see if there's anything that I could do for you guys. But remember, you have a friend in the General Assembly. You've always had it for the 12 years I've been down there. Like you said, President, we've been together for a long time. We worked at the city together. We worked with each other. Derville, he was my friend for a little while. Then he went to D.C. and then he came back.
I was still your friend.
You know, I don't know if it was me while you left, Derville, because I
came back.
Yes, you did. But I was kind of tough. I was tough on him. You know, we had to make tough decisions, and he handles those decisions pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you came back. I won't deal with you as much now.
Oh, I think you'll still deal with me, but if I could just say a quick word, I haven't known Representative Arroyo as long as Terry has, but as he indicated, I've known him ever since he took his congressional seat or his seat in the state legislature, and I think the legacy that I know about Representative Arroyo is not just in terms of infrastructure and investments and financial support for CTA, but it's also been around opportunity inclusivity, diversity, and his expectations that the money that we receive will benefit the communities that are in need. And from my perspective, his greatest legacy has been his continued and unwavering advocacy on behalf of those who cannot fight for themselves. And he knows that my commitment to that is on par with his. And I'm looking forward to not only showing him what we're doing with the money that he has fought to get us, but also how that money is now being leveraged to create better and greater opportunities for African Americans, for Latinos, and for others who are downtrodden and who are looking for a way to basically lift their lives up. And I want to thank you for allowing me to continue that effort, which is just as important to you, I know, as the effort to get the money that we need to rebuild our infrastructure.
Thank you, Dorpo. And before I leave, I have to kind of run to another board meeting, Metro, your kind of counterpart. But I just turned 65, Derville, so, make sure you keep those bus passes at the right amount for seniors. We always look out for the seniors. I know CTA has done a very good job, and there was times when they were planning on taking those senior rides, or hey, I'm a senior now, so I'm going to fight you back on that. Make sure you look out for me. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor, it's a pleasure being among friends here. I feel great being here, and I hope it's not the last time, but if you don't call me to come back, I won't feel offended. Thank you.
No, I'm sure you'll be back. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate it. All right.
Our next order of business is a review of the finance report. Presenter Jeremy Fine.
Good morning, I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be going over June and year-to-date results for the system-generated revenues and expenses. With regard to June revenues, we see farebox totals down about $1.4 million. Passes, though, continue to be good performers, where we're up about $500,000 on that line. So overall, for the month of June, we see fare and pass totals down about $900,000. Reduced fare subsidy is again cut by 50%, as it has been for several years. And then we see non-fare box totals up about $300,000 due to additional revenues from advertisements, investment income, and the like. So that leaves us total revenue line item for the month of June down about $1.8 million. We'll talk about how we're offsetting that for the month of June, as well as year-to-date numbers. But average fare is down a couple of pennies, and free rides are about 100,000 higher than June of last year. Year-to-date numbers follow a similar form. The fare box totals are down about 7.2, primarily driven by the polar vortex in the first couple of months of the year. Passes, though, again, 7-day, 30-day, and others continue to be good performers for us. So we see about $3.7 million of favorability on that line, which leaves us on a year-to-date number about $3.5 million to the negative. That coupled with the reduced fare subsidy cut from the state of $7.1 million, and coupled with the non-fare box outperformance of about $700,000, leaves us on a net basis on a year-to-date revenue line of about 9.9, effectively $10 million down to budget. But again, we'll talk about how we're more than offsetting that on expense cuts. Average fare up a penny, and free rides on a year-to-date basis are about $200,000 less than this time last year. With regard to expenses for the month of June, we see labor down about $1 million. As we've talked about in prior years, when we start seeing line cuts and work being done on the system, we have additional shuttles and things like that run, so that affects the labor line. Materials we see favorable to the tune of about $1.6 million. Fuel and power coupled together, about another $1 million of savings on those two lines. The security services slightly favorable, and other expenses almost $1 million of favorability on contracts and the like there. So that leaves us on total operating expenses about $2.7 million favorable for the month of June. If you offset the drag that we saw on revenues, that leaves us on a net basis for the month of June to the positive by about $940,000. If you flip to the next page, that will flow through and allow us to go into positive territory for the first time this year. So I'll just run through this real quick. Labor, we see slightly favorable, but effectively flat for the year. Materials up about $2.7 million. Fuel about $1.7, $500,000 of savings on power. Security services over $1 million of savings there, and $3.5 on other expenses. So $10 million of savings vis-a-vis budgeted expectations on a year-to-date basis. Again, that offsets all of the shortfalls that we saw on the revenue, system-generated revenue side. So, again, we've been talking about how we would continue to tighten our belts and claw back some of the shortfall that we particularly saw generated in the first 2 months of the year because of the bad weather. So now, at the end of June, we've now come back into positive territory on system-generated revenues and our expenses. We continue to keep an eye on, the public funding, the sales taxes, PTF, and real estate transfer taxes. So we'll continue to work with the departments on continuing to tighten our belts with regard to, the effect of those revenues as well. With regard to the three commodities that we have, fuel, power, and natural gas, we've been able to and will continue to make selective purchases on those three commodities. We are seeing some, positive momentum with regard to power, and we have some exciting updates that we'll be providing at the next meeting on that front. On natural gas, we've been able to make some selective purchases in the outer years as well as, the cold weather subsided, after the winter. So, we've been able to continue to lock in at historically low prices, basically across all three of these commodities. So we're very excited about continuing to lock in on those outer years to provide us budget certainty and to also provide us savings vis-a-vis, where we were even a few years ago.
Thank you. Any questions, please?
Yeah, Chairman, I've got one. You're talking about the real estate transfer tax, and I know this morning I was watching the news, and I don't know where we've been able to see it on the first 6 months, but hopefully at the second half of the year, the last 2 quarters of the year, with the lowering of interest rates, hopefully there will be an uptick. Just a question, have you been able to track how we've been doing with the real estate transfer tax for the first 6 months of the year? Again, with the hope that with lower interest rates, they're talking about maybe another cut. So we could absolutely probably see, those transactions kind of rise a little bit over the next 6 months. But have you been able to track how we're doing so far, 6 months in?
Yes, we're, we're behind budgeted expectations, but again, as you indicate, you are starting to see hopefully some momentum with regard to residential transactions because of the fact that you have exceptionally low interest rates and you see some inversion in the yield curve right now. So like 30-year, rates are very, very low. We continue to track that, the residential component, as well as the commercial component of the real estate transfer tax. Those are large buildings, primarily in the Loop, that go up for sale. So again, we'll continue to track both of those components. Again, knock on wood, hopefully with rates being where they are, we'll continue to see some good momentum through the summer into the fall for some of the sales of residential properties, and then the sale of large commercial buildings kind of take their own momentum. But we'll continue to track those and update the board with regard to any commercial sales that are on the horizon as well.
Any other questions?
Jeremy, again, not a question, but it's sort of a question, just thinking about you know, I'm looking at you've locked in about 67% of our natural gas for 2020. And then if I look over at fuel, you're at about 84%. And I'm curious since you're locking it in years out, are those numbers kind of coming in terms of what you were projecting for the budgets in 2020? You know, because I know we've got, you know, the oil prices and gas prices have been going up and down, so.
Yeah, they're coming in as expected, if not better than expected. So that's why we're going ahead and locking those in those outer years, because they're really at historic lows. We've been at kind of historic lows for a while, just kind of in a band of historic lows, but they've been dipping even a little bit more. And when they dip, we're buying selective purchases in each of those three commodities.
How much of our fuel do we buy, like in the States versus what gets shipped over from different places? Do you know the percentage?
We can circle back on that. It's a little hard to tell exactly because, you know, we're buying it from a supplier who's, you know, getting it from folks that are distilling the oil. So when we've asked that before, it was hard for us to get an exact percentage, but we'll circle back and see if there's any more transparency on that percentage distribution between.
Yeah, the only reason I raised it because of the volatility sometime of what's going on around the world versus, you know, here locally. I know we've started in the U.S. to produce more, so that's why I was curious versus international versus local in the States.
Absolutely. We'll circle back on that.
Okay.
Any questions? If there are no further questions, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing free rides for the first day of school in 2019 and 2020. Jeremy.
Thank you. And I'm also joined by Stina Fish, who's the manager for business development. The first day of school program, we've been offering this program since 2011. The ordinance before you is a request to establish the program for 2019 and 2020. The first day of school free ride program has provided over 1 million rides since introduction in 2011. The free fares are offered to all school-age children and adults accompanying them on the first day of school for Chicago Public Schools and others. Free rides are provided for all students, not just CPS students. The free rides are given between 5:30 a.m. and 8:30 p.m., which are the normal hours that the student reduced fares are valid on the CTA. The program supports CPS efforts to boost attendance on the first day of school and set the tone for the upcoming school year. The cost to run the first day of school free ride program has averaged around $140,000 over the past 7 years. In 2019, Under Armour signed up to be the sponsor for this year's first day of school free ride program. Their sponsorship fee is $240,000, which covers the cost of all of the advertising media to promote the program, as well as to help offset the cost of the free rides. We'll continue efforts to secure a partner for the 2020 program. As you may recall, in the past, the Sun-Times sponsored the program for 3 years, from 2012 through 2014. And the CTA will continue to offer its low 75-cent fare for elementary and high school students Monday through Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. when school is in session. And again, we're very excited to have Under Armour as a sponsor on this year's program. It's been a few years since we've had one. I appreciate Stina and her team working hard to secure this sponsorship program for the 2019 program, and we'll continue to look either for Under Armour to continue that in 2020 or another sponsorship to come about for the 2020 program. But again, what we're asking for authorization today is for the authorization of the program for 2019 and 2020.
What type of trade do we give those sponsors?
So you want to walk through like those?
Sure, they get recognized as a sponsor. Their $240,000 also includes advertising, exteriors of buses and trains, and interiors and in stations. And then they're going to do a big digital blast on the first day of school to remind people today's the day, free rides.
Is that only for one day?
Yes.
That's good. We can do more.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is, again, Stina and the business development folks have done a good job of securing this, but we're looking to continue to expand it, not just for, next year, but other opportunities to, again, drive additional revenue and, help sponsor some of these programs. First day of school program is a great one, but there's other things that we would like to kind of expand this type of model to.
Could you talk a little bit about how did the partnership come about?
Sure. We were assisted by Intersection, which is our advertising contractor. So we let them know that this was something that we were very interested in. They've been working very hard to shop it around to various sponsors, and Under Armour kind of latched onto it and said they felt like that fit their brand, and they were very interested in being a part of the program with us and CPS.
Is CPS involved in sort of the marketing as well? Do you kind of work with them to get the words out, is one? And then two, I don't know if we could track it, but since we've been at this for about 8 years, have we seen an uptick in attendance? How has this impacted attendance, which was one of the reasons I know when we announced this in 2011 with the mayor, that was one of the reasons that we wanted to do it, where parents, kids who were accompanied by parents and all of that. But have we ever gotten any feedback? I think it's almost public information, Jeremy, in terms of being able to look at the uptick in attendance over the years.
Yeah, so we do have contact with CPS, making sure that, again, this program is helpful. It is. Their funding formulas are tied to, the first, week of school. So, again, this is helpful for them to assure that they get a good start, the first step, making sure that kids are at school that first day. It's also helpful for them, and they've indicated that, it's helpful that, that the program extends to, the guardians, the adults, that help them get to and, to school as well. So, again, ensuring that folks are, that the kids are getting to school that first day really sets the tone for, the counts that they have to do for their formulas on, the first several days of school. Again, this is a program that they're fully supportive of. And in terms of marketing that internally, CPS, we've worked with CPS to make sure that they're promoting it through their newsletters, the communications that they have with their students and with the guardians, to make sure that they're aware of the program, to use the program. And again, I think that the Under Armour folks saw kind of a nexus between their brand and this opportunity to sponsor a very important program for Chicago, for the kids of Chicago. So, again, I think it's a good partnership. Hopefully they see that being very beneficial, and will hopefully, come back to us very shortly after the first day of school and say, we loved it so much, we want to do it again next year. So,
I want to thank you for your hard work on it. I think it's great. I think thinking big picture, it's also, and I'm sure the advertising agency that you work with is thinking of this. It's a great opportunity for us to reach the families. And what a great way to communicate that there's another way to get to so many activities that families have to get to, that many instances parking is very expensive. So that might be a great pitch for not just for this, but for down the road, across the whole year, for us to maybe figure out a vehicle to get to them and, to write CTA as a family or something. It might be a great partner or other partners that might want to be part of it. But anyway, thank you, because it's great work.
I think that's a very interesting idea. You know that Metra promotes sort of the family pass and things of that nature on the weekends to try to get families to use Metra to come out from the suburbs. And you're absolutely right. There could be opportunities here that we need to think about as we're moving forward, where you can pitch the whole family concept as a way to basically encourage ridership and to allow more people to utilize CTA. So that's something I will follow up with staff on.
Jeremy, you said that it's not just for CPS students, it's for all students. How far is this college, how far it go? And then with the 75 cent regular passes?
It's
Go ahead.
for any school student who has the student pass. The free rides on the first day of school is open to any elementary or high school student. We're not asking for ID, so it coincides with the CPS first day of school, but any school child is eligible regardless of where you're heading to school. Yes.
Any other question? If there are no further questions, may I have the leave to place this item in the order for board approval?
So moved.
Second. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a special pricing pilot program at the authorities' Cumberland and Rosemont Park and Ride locations. Jeremy.
Good morning, Stina Fish, Manager of Business Development. Today for your consideration, I present a proposal for a 6-month pricing pilot program at the Cumberland and Rosemont Park and Rides. This pilot is intended to attract customers traveling out of O'Hare Airport to use the Rosemont and Cumberland Park and Rides and take the Blue Line to O'Hare. If successful, the program will increase park and ride revenues and Blue Line ridership. We believe that both Rosemont and Cumberland are well-positioned to attract airport travelers, and both have space available. The pilot will introduce a rate of $10 per day for stays of at least 2 days that are booked online in advance, a rate which is competitive with other lots in the region marketing to O'Hare customers, even when taking into consideration the cost of the CTA trip. This ordinance also gives the CTA president the authority to adjust the discounted rate during the pilot period with a maximum rate of $10 for 24 hours. CTA will work with our parking operator, CPS, to market the special rate online at the Cumberland Garage, through emails to existing CTA pass holders, and through third-party booking sites like Spot Hero and Park Mobile. We will also provide information through CPS's own booking website, parking.com, on the purchase of CTA fare media at venturechicago.com, and on elevator status, which may be important to customers making the decision to use our lots to access O'Hare. Prior rate reductions at CTA's park and ride locations have proven to have a positive impact on occupancy. Staff will monitor occupancy rates and revenues monthly throughout the pilot, and will make adjustments to the marketing plan or recommend pricing changes to the president as needed to attract new customers. At the end of the 6-month pilot, we will report back to the board on the results of the pilot, and if it is desirable to make a discounted multi-day rate permanent, we will request your approval at that time. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
No questions. I just think it's a great idea. I mean, when you look at 88% occupancy during the weekday and 51% occupancy on weekend, any uptick in terms of occupancy is new revenue coming in the door that we weren't realizing. So I'm happy, looking forward to hearing in 6 months, what kind of uptick we've seen in terms of the occupancy rate of those parking lots on weekends. But this is a great idea.
Yeah, we're excited about the pilot, as you indicate, trying to incentivize additional parkers at the facilities. I mean, this is a rate that is very competitive with competition around the airport, at the airport, around the airport. And again, this is an additional benefit to folks that are pass holders because, again, they effectively have free access once they're a pass holder to access the system. So if they're parking at the facility, which again is primarily a covered parking facility at both of them, and they're able to ride on into the airport. So again, this is a great opportunity for and another reason to buy passes, in utilization of those passes in different ways.
Just a comment, I think it's a great idea to keep pushing those passes.
Yes, yes.
One of the things I mentioned also with regards to IDOT is that, we have drivers that are downtown or thinking about going to the airport or whatever, and working with them, digital signage to kind of remind them and let them know that we're doing this. I think it's great.
I agree. I agree, and I've already asked staff to reach out to IDOT to talk to them about promoting our park and ride lots, and hopefully we'll get positive feedback on that. But I think that makes perfectly good sense. I know in other states, in other cities, that is a regular part of the messaging that gets put up there, and we're fortunate enough to actually have CTA transit running down the middle of two major expressways in the city. So it is something that we should. Yes, I thought it is important that because we're fortunate enough to have two transit lines running down the middle of two major expressways in the city, and it's certainly something that I would think IDOT would want to encourage as just a congestion mitigation action on behalf of the people who use the expressways on a daily basis.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the order for board approval?
So moved.
Our next order of business, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Is a review of an ordinance authorizing a sublease to the Decennial Group LLC of a portion of property located at 120 North Racine Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Bill?
Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff is recommending approval of an ordinance authorizing a sublease with Decennial Group LLC for a portion of the property located at 120 North Racine. In August 2015, the Transit Board approved a 10-year lease with Sterling Racine LLC for approximately 85,000 square feet on the first and second floors of 120. The lessee is seeking consent to sublease approximately 5,615 square feet of the second floor space to Decennial Group LLC. Under the terms of the agreement with Sterling Racine, all subleases require authorization and approval of the Chicago Transit Board, which cannot unreasonably be withheld. Sterling Racine LLC will continue to be responsible for all rent and expenses set forth in the lease agreement. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Say, Bill, I've got one. So I know they have to come back anytime they're subleasing any of their properties, any of the space within 120 North Racine. How is the relationship going with Sterling Bay?
So
In terms of late fees, are they paying us on time and everything?
So we've had some issues with their payments, and we've charged some late fees associated with those payments, and we actually have been working with them about clarifying how those calculations came up with the late fees to get payment on those late fees. They are up to date on all the rental payments to date, though, for the base rent. They stay fully occupied. This lease will continue to keep them at full occupancy in the space. This space will continue to keep them fully occupied in the space, so we're expecting our payment.
And maybe, Karen, this is how are we working through the late fee issue that we've got with them?
It's currently in negotiations.
Okay.
We have a call scheduled actually with them later this week to discuss the late fees. But we are pleased that the last few rent payments have been made on time and in full.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just reading the write-up, and I'm cited that they're at 100% occupancy, but again, I just wanted, it's not the sublease tenants that I'm concerned about, it's the main tenant who we originally leased the space to. I just want to make sure they're in good standings.
No, understood, as we do as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the order for board approval? So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance consenting to a further sublease of a portion of Suite 1150 located at 567 West Lake Street. Bill?
Staff is recommending approval of an ordinance authorizing a further sublease for a portion of Suite 1150 located at 567 West Lake to Intervoice, Inc. In February 2011, the Transit Board approved a 15-year sublease with NAN for approximately 21,770 square feet of the 11th floor of the CTA headquarters. The lessee is seeking consent to sublease 23 workspaces of its space to Intervoice. Under the terms of the agreement with NAN, any further sublease requires authorization and approval of the Chicago Transit Board. NAN will continue to be responsible for all rent and expenses set forth in the sublease agreement. I'll be happy to take questions at this time.
Any questions? Do we have any more space to lease here in the building?
Not currently.
Second.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance amending the Chicago Transit Authority procurement policy and procedures to include a contracting careers opportunities policy. Tom.
Good morning. Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer. I'm joined up here with Ellen McCormick, our Vice President of Purchasing and Supply Chain, and Juan Pablo Prieto, our Senior Manager of Diversity Programs. CTA has a strong history of using the investments it makes to create workforce opportunities. We do this by partnering with the community, establishing contractual commitments, and by working with our contractors to achieve these goals. CTA has consistently been committed to creating workforce opportunities through our contracts, and our impact has grown over time as we have developed more tools to expand those opportunities. Since 2012, we have applied workforce commitments on more than 20 major contracts. This has helped to move the needle and create real opportunities for disadvantaged workers and those from disadvantaged communities. You may recall that last month we reported on progress with our workforce initiatives on 3 active contracts: Red Purple Modernization, Lake Line and South Main Line track work, and the 7000 series railcar production. Earlier this year, we brought forward success stories from the work on the Garfield Green Line station. Now we recommend taking the next step and amending CTA's procurement policy statement to add a section that specifically identifies creating workforce opportunities as a goal. This will memorialize CTA's commitment to creating workforce opportunities through our contracts and help us continue to deliver results. We're happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, Tom, kind of, if you could drill down and talk about a little bit about how this is going to be different than what we've done in the past,
Yeah, I think this is a continuation. I think we like to think of creating these workforce opportunities as an ongoing effort and just adding puzzle pieces in to make sure that we're sort of delivering more and more results and refining the tools as we move forward. As you know, Chairman, the 2012 the Red Line South project was the first time that we applied a workforce goal specifically to a contract. Through that effort and through work with actually talking to the community and contractors and the workforce, they identified other opportunities to add goals to our contracts, be it for union apprenticeship slots, setting a minimum target for those, and then also most recently identifying targets for economically disadvantaged communities. And through these efforts, we've actually seen success on these contracts. So we've reached a point in time where we feel that we're comfortable applying these goals, we've seen success in applying these goals, and we think it's appropriate to memorialize this in the policy statement from the board so that we can just continue to communicate that and continue to move this process forward.
How do you sort of track it? Do they report out quarterly to us in terms of the progress they're making?
They do, and JP actually receives those reports, so he can talk about the specifics.
Good morning. Through our system LCP Tracker, we receive certified payroll from the construction contracts that outlines each individual employee, how many hours they work, their demographic information, what trade they work in. We use that information that's sent to us through that system to compile reports to ensure that the contractors are on track to meeting their goal.
I noticed, and this is just something I would like to maybe change a little bit. On D, item number D, you've got CTA staff will provide periodic reports. Maybe let's change that to annual reports.
Absolutely.
If not semi, just so that, we continue to track it and monitor it to make sure that things are going as we hope they would go. I know this is something that Dorval's been involved in, I think going back all the way to the FTA, and I think, Dorval, you were involved in doing a little bit of this, even at DOT when you were there, and I don't know if you want to speak to it as well, because I know this is something that you've been close to over the years as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're correct. The U.S. Employment Plan, which is sort of the one of the many tools that we utilize to address workforce development opportunities for those who are economically disadvantaged, was actually something that I basically worked very hard within DOT to seek approval and to allow it to be actually implemented on federally funded projects. The best example of that, of course, is our CRRC contract, our rail car contract, where we currently have a U.S. employment plan in place and are basically pursuing opportunities for individuals, up to about 160 people that will be employed to build rail cars here in the city of Chicago. This is really, from my perspective, part of a much broader effort that I've been engaged in since I've come back as president, and that you were engaged in from the time that you became chairman of CTA, of really making sure that we're leveraging public dollars to support and serve the communities that we represent. And whether it's U.S. employment plan, whether it's WIA goals, whether it's apprenticeships and other things, we're very excited to be a part of a process that basically is being institutionalized with the policy the board is formally adopting. I should point out, in addition to the board's adoption of a policy, I will be issuing a policy statement subsequent to the board's actions that will further reinforce my expectation of the implementation of these policies and maximizing, where possible, the tools that allow us to accomplish this. As we move forward here, I also wanted to make the point that, separate apart from the annual reporting that we can provide to you as part of the board ordinance, you also receive, as part of your monthly construction report, information around these issues as well for major projects that we undertake. And so your ability to both monitor as well as to oversee what we're doing with this program will be a constant part of this process. One of the things that I wanted to do was to basically institutionalize what you and I have been doing. And I think by establishing a formal board policy that is adopted by the board and can only be modified by the board, we are now, in effect, institutionalizing practices that we have been engaged in, based on your leadership and my predecessor, Forrest Claypool's leadership, as well as my leadership today, and putting in place a process by which the board can continue to monitor our implementation of this policy as we go forward.
This is pushing the button a little bit, and I'm not sure if it's currently done. I don't think it would be. But I know the city puts out an annual procurement budget, right, of all the different projects that we put out, the city, the different agencies, including Tollway, some of the state agencies. I wonder if down the road, because I have a company, we look at that and to kind of plan ahead, try to see what projects we want to go after. Is that a component now?
And I know Ellen can speak to this even more. We do put on our website our procurement plan that lays out the contracts and projects that we plan to engage in. We also, as part of this effort, will have reporting that we'll put out on the website so that there's information about how we're achieving these goals and what we're seeing as our actual accomplishments around that.
But I think you know what I'm talking about with regards to the big.
The buying plan, the city's buying plan, we absolutely participate in that.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering if, the buying plan, everybody looks at it, because that would be a big incentive. You're looking at it almost a year in advance or 6 months in advance to see what kind of workforce requirements. It's just a thought, but that might be kind of interesting, because when companies are planning ahead, when you start looking at workforce, 'cause that's the big issue, right, planning ahead, so we have the workforce available. And I don't think that's in there now, am I correct?
I don't believe that it is, but we can work with the city on that.
That's a thought.
Well, and I think, in that regard, now that we have a capital program, and I'm actually going to be in a position to move projects forward, I certainly want to make sure that we're providing the private sector the opportunity to understand what projects are in our budget, what we plan to be pursuing over the course of the next year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever, so that they do have an opportunity to sort of start to plan for those opportunities as they go forward. I think all of that makes perfectly good sense to me, and is part of what we should be doing in the effort of making sure we're being as transparent as possible about the way in which we're going to spend this money and when those opportunities are going to arise.
Any other questions? there are no further questions, may I have you to place this item in the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
And just, Director, before we move on, just take a little bit of break. Just a reminder to myself and to the presenters coming up and everybody, to please keep speaking into the microphone. We're doing much better, but just a reminder to us all. Thank you. We can continue now, Director Silva.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an agreement with City Year, Inc. for volunteer service activities. Jerry?
Good morning, Chairman Silva, members of the committee. My name is Gerald Alder. I'm the Vice President of Legislative Affairs. I'm here to present this two-year agreement with City Year. As you all are well aware, City Year is a national youth service organization that provides young adults with a full-time, year-long community service, leadership, and civic engagement. This two-year agreement will commence upon signature of the chairman and will go through 2021. The CTA will be providing 190 transit passes to City Year per program session. And in kind in return, the CTA will receive over 8,000 hours of volunteer time. The City Year volunteer would incorporate participating at the CTA's Jamboree, participating at CTA job fairs, parades, helping out in RPM and community outreach there, as well as our holiday train. I would like to add also, this is also going to be, if we this agreed to or commence, it will start be our 20th and 21st year of this contract. So we've been doing this for quite some time. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Maria Teresa Roman from my staff. She's been working on it since the commencement, or since it started, so 20 years ago. So again, this is just shows you we've been having a great partnership with City Year, and I'd like to continue that as possible. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
A great program.
Any questions? There's no question. If there are no further questions, may I have you to place this item in the omnibus for board approval? Thank you, Jerry.
So moved.
Second.
Our final order of business today is the review of 5 purchase and sales award recommendations. Presenter Ellen McCormick. Let's start with contract number B1.
So I've got a question on B1 in terms of the number of solicitations that you mailed out. 27 companies, 2 responded this year, this time, and I think the last time it was out to bid too. Do you have a process in place that you kind of go through and just scrub to see, if companies move, they're out of business? Because again, I gotta believe, this is the second time we put the contract out and we're still getting the same 2 bidders. So either we need to reduce the number, and I know it's probably not a huge cost item to do it because everything is sent electronically. But again, I don't know if you have a process within your shop where the staff annually, semi-annually, or every 2 years kind of go through and scrub these companies to see if they're still viable, still around.
As a matter of fact, we do, and we use our interns for that, so we do it on an annual basis. We contact the companies, we make sure that the people are still there, because sometimes we'll be sending an email to someone, they're no longer at the agency. We make sure that, or the company, we make sure that the email addresses are correct and so forth. As a matter of fact, we do that on our major procurements as well, and I just received a voicemail message complimenting this from a company that does business nationwide, and they said that a lot of times they'll miss out on procurements because people haven't changed their email addresses, the companies haven't corrected them, and we do that. On larger projects, we do that for each project, and on overall, we do that, again, we use our interns, and we go through and we contact the companies. Sometimes they'll change names, they'll combine with another company and so forth. So yes, we actually do that on an annual basis.
Do you have a cutoff period? Let's say they've been on our list for 10 years, but they've never bidded on anything.
We don't cut them off because there's always the opportunity, and it doesn't cost us anything to send it to them. So we'd rather send it to them and give them the opportunity. Maybe they've expanded the work that they're doing. When I talk to companies and I talk to them about registering, I always say put in maybe more than you, like possibly, if it's something you think, well, maybe I could do this, because you'd rather get an email and say, no, I'm not able to do this, than not get the email and see it at a later date and think, oh, shoot, I could have bid on that. So
But is there a period where, let's say, after 5 years, they have to come back in and re-up? What is it that's on their end in terms of them having skin in the game to stay on the list?
Well-
Even if they're not bidding, is there like every 5 years you need to re-up, you need to call us and?
We haven't been doing that.
Okay.
However, we are implementing iSupplier now, and this is actively, we require the vendors to actively register with us.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of work, actually, on our part, but we've really been reaching out to them and telling them that they have to register. So if they don't, although we're continuing to reach out, they would fall off that way.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're gonna send them bids, after 5 years, you can always say two, sometimes you'll have something, if you're not using it, people will cancel it, but I was just thinking, just so that they have some skin in the game, so that we know they're still interested, maybe 5 or 10 years, maybe you can see what best industry practices are, but, have a way for them to every 5 or 10 years renew something to just let us know that they're still interested and they're still in the space.
I'm
wanting
sure
to-
we can do
yeah.
that with our
Okay.
IT, so I'll talk to my people as soon as I get upstairs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions for B1? So let's move to E1, please. Any questions? Let's move then to G1.
Can you talk a little bit about G1?
Yeah,
Hello, I'm Jim Somas. I'm the Director of Enterprise Applications in the IT Project Management Office. Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are in front of you today requesting the approval of and funding for a 24-month extension of the Hyperion hosting contract. I should make a distinction. This is just the hosting aspect of the application. The application licensing software is under a different contract in the overall Oracle licensing and maintenance contract. The hosting contract is only the servers and the infrastructure required to run the application, and we require the 24-month extension in order to properly plan a competitive bid process to potentially move it from the current hosting entity, which is Oracle, to other companies out there that we know that can do the same kind of work. 24 months is also required because we have a blackout period for their budgeting process that lasts between May to December. And our finance department is busy during those months. They cannot really participate to migrate an application from the current hosting entity into a different hosting entity. And it will also give us sufficient time to test the application once we migrate it to the entity that's going to win the RFP that we're going to propose.
So just in timeline, you're hoping to go out with the next contract by when again?
Within 12 months. We're going
Okay.
to publish the RFP within the next few months, and within 12 months, we're looking to complete the RFP process and then begin the migration process to the entity that's going to win the RFP.
Okay.
Good morning. Michelle Curran, Vice President of Budget and Capital Finance. Just to add on to what Jim was saying is that, the budget process is a long process, and every department within the agency uses the Hyperion system to enter in their budget requests, and then we work closely with the departments. So we're not able to test any changes to the system during the budgeting process. We can't risk the system going down or any disruptions. So that's why we have the blackout period from May through December, so that we can avoid testing during the height of the budget season.
Any other questions?
And you feel comfortable you're going to be able to do it within that period of time?
Yes, we do. I anticipate it's going to take us 4 to 5 months to migrate from notice to proceed. So if we complete the RFP process within the next few months, we should be able to do it. I don't have any concerns.
Any other question? So let's move to contract number 1I and 1I.
Is it I-1 and 2 now?
Yeah, one.
That's it?
Two
The next
years.
ones are I-1 and I-2, correct?
That's right.
So again, with I-1, I see this as an extension, and when do you think you're gonna come back to the board? Well, when are you gonna get the RFP out?
We expect to come back to the board in October. The
Okay.
RFP is actually already out.
Okay.
We have already received our proposals. One of our evaluators became very ill, and she's out on disability.
Okay.
And so we had to get somebody new in. They have to catch up to and get to the point where everyone else is at, so that they can now fully participate as an evaluator. And that's the reason that we're back. And then we just always, we asked for 6 months just in case it took another month. We
Yeah.
wouldn't want to have to come back again. So the 6 months is, we don't expect it to be that. Again, we expect to be here before you in October.
Okay.
Any other questions? So if there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 5 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
Move.
Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
I have a second. Will the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller. Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 5 yes votes.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. I need a few minutes, Terry, before we can start. First off, I'd like some of the CTA staff to stand up because we've got 7 people coming in for commendations. They'll be coming in shortly, so we're going to need to seat them. I also want to go over to public comment. I know Ms. Grimshaw is here. I know Ms. Smith is here, and Ms. Allen is here. I want to make sure the other 3 are here. Cassie Baer, Cassie's here. Dan Galoth, Dan is here, and Susan Hurley. Susan's here. All right, we'll be starting in a few minutes. I'm going to start, the first 2 public comment speakers are going to be Ms. Allen and Ms. Smith, since they had contacted me originally first, but it's going to be a few minutes.
Oh, that sounds like a great party. Diana Ross. Oh, my goodness. No, what's it at his home? Because I've been up there. The United States? Rosemount? Here, what a great 75. Great party. I'm sure his wife gets a lot of credit. Have Donna Ross come in and sing for your 75th. That's awesome.
Quickly fill the paid parking, okay, replica, or can people
Park at the conference. Wow. That is nice.
We can do that first, and then we'll do public comment first.
What about? Yeah, it is. It's public comment first.
Okay, you guys can still run more now, that's fine.
Oh, I had a great time. You're talking about like Aspen? I think that's some fellows and I went out. We had a great time. Weather was great. The speakers were great. We went to about 3 of his sessions. Penny Princeton spoke. But we really enjoyed it. We had a great, and we always stay at the St. Regis. And they just do it. We stay at the St. Regis. They do a great job. Penny invited us over for dinner with her and her family, and she had some friends in her. Yes. Great, sir. Every time we go there, that's where we've stayed. It's been incredible. No, I enjoy that Aspen area. Out outdoors, and the air is fresh, and we get up in the morning and go for walks. I really like it. Yes, I like it. Exactly.
This just happened, so she's probably gonna go to rehab. Right.
Okay, I'd be happy to, especially if you go on vacation. I'll be happy to carry your medicine. 'Cause I need it.
That's all. That's all. She recovers back to dancing. I'll share with everyone. Stay in the research. Once she's there's all kinds of sports, arts, culture, dance, all kinds of so, she's got a long road first. Figure out her new normal.
It's so much work.
Well, hopefully she can get to it surely right away. Great facilities, great resources. I've never been in, I don't ski. I don't ski. I got 4 screws in my knee, so I don't have enough stability in my knee to ski. Bella's used to, she doesn't much. But we've never been out in the winter. Is it beautiful? Have you gone out in the winter?
All right, I think we're almost ready to start. Everybody, please remember to turn off your phones. Silence your cell phones, please. And we're going to first do the public comment, and then we're going to come back to the commendations. So I think we're now ready. I think we can start, Chairman.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for August 14th. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller. Ms. Irvine.
Here.
Excuse me, Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Here.
Mr. Silva.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board present with all 5 members here, sir.
Thanks, Greg. The first order of business is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have 7 public comment speakers today. We're going to start first with the 2 women who had contacted me first originally. Ms. Jennifer Smith, if you would like to step up to the front desk here, please. And Ms. Allen, if you would like to step up. If you would like to join her as well, because then you'll be speaking after her. You could both be up there. And because you had originally requested to speak a month or so ago, but then you couldn't make it, and so you're more than welcome to come on up here. I'd just like to remind all the speakers today that we allow 3 minutes to speak, so I ask, since we have a large group today, to try to get to your points and try to get it done within 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And Ms. Smith, we can start with you. Just please speak right into the microphone. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jennifer. I'm a little nervous because
Don't be.
I'm not a public speaker, so I'm going to explain myself as best as I can. I live in the South Shore neighborhood, and I have a few concerns about the service that we receive from CTA. The bus service, which is the J14, during rush hour, the morning and evening. I've been taking this bus for 2 years now, and one of my concerns is the time that the buses arrive. During rush hour, we are trying to get to work. Mainly the people that's taking this bus is coming downtown. We have to wait 16, sometimes 29 minutes before a bus has serviced our stop on 71st and Jeffrey. By that time, we have like over 30 or 40 people on the bus stop. I've even recorded a couple of times throughout the week. So my thing is the time. If the buses does not run on time, then it bags up the service, and what happens next is overcrowding. So I have missed maybe 3 or 4 buses because I couldn't get on. So then that makes me late for work. And I feel like, it's very inconveniencing. And even during the evening times when I catch it right here on Washington and Wales, the same thing. We see 20, 50, the 56, the 60, they're running every 3 to 5 minutes, and the 14 is coming maybe every 10 minutes or 8 minutes, and then the bus is very overcrowded. It services my stop right here on Washington and Wells, I believe. That's like the second stop, and the bus is jam-packed. The next thing I want to speak about is, the next thing I would like to speak about is the safety. This bus takes Lakeshore Drive. If the bus is packed to capacity, everybody is on there like sardines. If one wrong stop, a step on the brake or a car swerves, then that's tragic. That's not safe. And then it's not safe for the bus driver either. Other than that, the time even on the weekend, this bus comes every 20 minutes, but if I walk down maybe 4 or 5 blocks to 67th and the 6 comes, which service the Hyde Park area, on a Sunday, they're running every 8 minutes.
Okay.
We need better service.
Okay.
The bus is not safe, and that's my
Well, no, first of
concern.
all right. Well, let me say this. First of all, thank you for coming down. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. Thank you for being a CTA bus rider. Who
Yes.
can Ms. Smith talk with?
Yes, first of all, let me apologize for your experiences. Clearly, we want to provide better service, and I certainly, would have the same concerns if I were riding the J14 as well. I'm going to have you speak with both my chief of transit operations, who actually is responsible for running the bus service, and my chief planning officer, who schedules that service, so we can get more information about, first of all, where you specifically catch the buses, and then talk to you about what your experiences are, and we can talk about what we may be able to do to follow up on that and let you know what we're doing to address that problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
Ms. Smith, if you wouldn't mind just sitting there for a few
Yes.
minutes and wait for Ms. Allen, because I think both of you may be ending up speaking to similar people. Okay, thank you. Ms. Allen, go right
Can
ahead
I
next.
move this up a
Yes,
little?
move it right over and speak right into it. Thank you.
Okay, again, my name is Miss Allen. I'm a writer of the Blue Line, O'Hare. Anyway, the reason why I'm here is about the beautification that has started on Pulaski stop. I believe it started August number 5, or if not sooner, on a Monday. And I went yay when I saw that they was doing some renovation. I was excited, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, today is the 14th. 14 days later, I noticed that the work has come to a stop. Well, here's my concerns. I'm thinking that they were going to renovate the canopy of the CTA on Pulaski. They're not. That canopy has not been steam cleaned, nor has that canopy been painted in maybe 20 to 30 years, tops, I'm assuming. Number 2, unfortunately, there's a lot of urinating on that platform. Why? I cannot explain it. I think it's disgusting. I think these are grown men. These are not children doing it. But again, behavior is behavior. I don't know if it's mental illness. I don't know. CTA does not see to it that they steam or mop that platform down on a regular basis if they know that that's the kind of thing going on. Number 3, what CTA did was take whatever funds that was provided to beautify the platform, painted the rails, painted the rail guards on the bench or the seat, and I'm like, that's so minor. So what I did, so I didn't assume, I walked up to some workers yesterday around 11 o'clock for my travels, and I said, well, what about the canopy? Are you guys going to repair it? And they said, I don't know, and I don't think so. I said, okay, no problem. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Number 4, observation based on the University of the UIC Halstead stop, Racine, Illinois Medical District, Western, Kedzie, Holman. Everything is amazing on those platforms. I don't know if it has to do with the 3 C's, the 3 E's, education, environment, economics. I don't know if it's because they got more taxes. I don't know. But to me, it's not fair, due to the fact that everyone should not be placed in a stereotypic melting pot that no one cares about the Pulaski Blue Line stop. I do. Number 5, if I may suggest, a ordinance sign should be placed on the platform to let people know there are going to be consequences for urinating on the platform. I mean, literally at 2 a.m. in the morning, guys are literally on the platform visibly urinating. And it's pretty disgusting, and it's very animalistic behavior as far as I'm concerned. But I'm not one to judge. And finally, number 6, the workers up there allow any and everyone to get on that platform, and they literally spend the night. That is not safe. I will get off at 2 o'clock in the morning. There are guys just sitting there randomly, just sitting there, hanging out, drinking, whatever you want to call it. No one is addressing none of that buffoonery behavior. And finally, I have my thoughts written down. None of the money to me has not been leveraged properly like all the other stops that I mentioned. And I think that the funds that have been provided is kind of inferior, because it's more like change than anything rather than take care of the major problem. And all they did to me was patch up a balloon. And I had some concluding comments. I think that's it. I think that, A, someone wants to suggest management level, mop down the platform if that's going to be the case with that urinating behavior. And number 2, see if they can put in a budget to steam clean the canopy and paint it down. It'll smell better. Maybe people might take better care of the ramp. I don't know. Oh, number 7 or number 10 or whatever. The ramp coming down, the concrete, all they did was patch it up. But yet, when you are traveling going east on the train at Racine, there's money. I don't know if that's money from transportation. I don't know where the funds be coming from. They literally bust up the concrete, and they're going to repair all of that, and that's going to be really expensive. But yet the ramp on the Pulaski stop, they're just patching it, and that again has not been, new concrete has not been poured, I want to say again, no later than 3 decades. So those are my concerns, and that's why I'm here today.
Well, Ms. Ellen, again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. One, I think the timing is perfect in terms of you coming down and having a conversation. I think you were here earlier when State Representative Arroyo was talking about a $45 billion capital bill that just got passed. He was talking about CTA ended up doing very well in terms of getting dollars to do that. Prior to this capital bill, you would almost have to go back 10 to 20 years for CTA getting any significant money from the state. We are fortunate that we have been able to get some money from the federal government, but some of the things you're talking about, all of these things are addressable. One, you're absolutely right in terms of the public urination should be taking place. We're going to try to do something with the young men sleeping, hopefully work with some of the shelters to find them a place to sleep versus sleeping on our platforms, and maybe that's something we can work with the city on. But in light of the fact that we do have capital money now, I know if I'm not mistaken, Dorval, and you can kind of speak to this, if I'm not mistaken, I think during the capital process or the General Assembly session, the blue line was one of the lines we highlighted that we were going to spend a significant amount of money to try to renovate. And I know the stops that you've talked about, but I think we've talked about the entire blue line.
As you and I have discussed before, the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line is the last major section of CTA system to go through a complete rehab. The work that we're doing there now is not a rehab of that station. It really is mostly some cosmetic work and some minor work that we're trying to do just to help a little bit. But the chairman is absolutely right. With the advent of a new capital bill, there is money that was set aside to make some improvements to the Blue Line. We have the ability to do a few more things than we currently have done. The workers there obviously would not be aware of any of this, so I apologize for the answer you got. But I do want to make sure that I connect you up with our Chief of Security, Ron Esther, particularly about the concerns you have about your safety at the Blue Line. And we can talk to you about what we are doing and what we can do to improve that situation there. I agree 100% with you that people sleeping, urinating, doing all the things that you're talking about is not acceptable and should be properly addressed. I'm also going to make sure that you talk to my Chief Infrastructure Officer, who's responsible for the type of work that you're talking about in terms of canopy repairs and things of that nature, so he can at least be aware of what your concerns are, and we can make sure we get someone out there to see what we can do to possibly improve it in the short term, while also planning for what may require more substantial investments that we're going to make in it.
May I just ask an additional question to that, though?
Yes.
It's a side point. But are we speaking general, or is there something specifically that will be done before the winter gets here? Because they're done with that minor cosmetic.
Yep.
And actually, that minor cosmetic work has made the platform look worse. They should have just left it alone.
The work,
It just wasted money.
the type of work that you're talking about doing at that station is substantial, and it will take time to do that. There are, however, things that we can do in the interim that can make it better. It won't necessarily fix everything, but it'll make it better than what it is now, and that's why I want you to talk to the person who's responsible for that program. The type of work that I need to do for that station is a multi-million-dollar activity, just like what you were talking about with the other stations along that line, that basically takes months, of planning and, can take over a year to complete. So all of this isn't going to happen by winter, but that doesn't mean there aren't things that we can do between now and the winter time to make it better. And so what I'd like to do for you is make you aware of what we can do, what we will do, and then we can keep you informed as we finalize the plans for what we will do for that station, so you have some understanding, as well as all the other customers there, of what they can expect and what timeline we can do it all in. The good news is that I actually have money to have this conversation. If you had had this conversation with me a year ago, I would have basically told you, I understand your pain, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm now having a conversation about when am I going to make the repairs and how are we going to make it better, which is a much better place to be than where we were literally a year ago. So, without getting into all the details, I've got about $13 billion worth of repairs I need to make to the city, to the CTA. And so I need to figure out how I'm going to do all of that. This is obviously one area that we've identified as a priority, which is why we're at least initially doing the work that you were seeing here. But we will do more work, and we will make it better. We will address the concerns that you have.
But here's the thing, my concern just got deflected. See, I have nothing to do with those other stations. I'm only here for Pulaski. That Pulaski station has never been repaired.
I know, which
I'm
is why
offended
we're
because- I'm offended-
we're approaching it
I'm offended
now.
because of the simple fact is that when they decided to do that minor cosmetics surgery, they knew that that canopy has never been repaired, never been painted, never been cleaned down. The platform has never been repaired. The walk-down way has been sitting like that maybe 30 years as well. And there is no excuse for that, for all the other stations going east or then coming back going west. If they're done, and I'm just being personal about this and transparent, the bottom line is based on economics, which is one, education, and environment. And I think that this is why this was never made a major part of the I'm calling it beautification. And it just got people paid to do nothing. If you was to see this station, you would be appalled. I'm telling you right now. They would just took something and stick it to the wall and hope it fits. And I'm offended by it, but I'm just here to let you know.
Ms. Allen, I want to let you know, I use the blue line, and I typically get off at Racine. It's near my I get off at Racine. But I'm going to head down to Pulaski and check it out.
Thank you, I appreciate
Next chance
that.
I have the time on the blue line. And take a
what's your
look.
name again?
Kevin Irvine.
Okay, Mr. Irvine, I would appreciate it if you go see
And
what I
thanks for coming
see.
down and sharing your concerns with us.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So, Ms. Allen, Ms. Smith, the staff can meet with you right afterwards. If you would, they'll meet with you right away. Thank you very much for coming down, and we'll be in touch with both of you. Next, our next speaker, I don't remember the order that they came in, but I believe it's Susan Hurley and Dan Galoth and Jackie Grimshaw. If you would like to step to the front here. Just please state your name and who you represent, and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Susan Hurley. I am the Executive Director of Chicago Jobs with Justice. We are a coalition of community and labor organizations. I'm here today in partnership with Jobs to Move America in Illinois to speak to the policy to establish workforce development goals in procurement, as was discussed earlier. The U.S. Employment Plan has been a critical tool for the Chicago Transit Authority to create jobs, as we've seen with the 7,000 series and the establishment of the CRRC plant on the southeast side of Chicago to build trains for the CTA. That's been a critically important breakthrough, and it really demonstrates that using our tax dollars through public procurement as a way to create jobs is absolutely an essential function of the second largest transit agency in America. So we are very excited that the CTA is looking at adopting this policy permanently and incorporating it into all future procurements. That should absolutely be our goal as Chicagoans, to be creating jobs here and domestically in transportation manufacturing. It's vitally important, like our concern with this is being able to connect people with employment who need jobs. You know, we've got communities in Chicago that have been historically unemployed and underemployed, and who face many barriers to entering the workforce. As we implement a policy like this, our goal is to work with Jobs to Move America on refining the details of this policy to make sure that we're removing barriers to employment so that the people who need these jobs the most will be able to access these jobs. This is also connected to our Transit for All campaign. We are starting a campaign with partners with whom you're familiar, like Active Transportation Alliance, the labor movement in Chicago with whom we work closely, to build the political will to have the resources to do that $13 billion of of investing that President Carter spoke to. We have a lot of work to do, but transforming our transit system is a key part of addressing racial and economic justice, as well as confronting climate justice and making sure that we're building a future that we can live and thrive in. And the important part of what the CTA chooses to do in procurement and how it spends money is making sure that not only are we creating jobs on the transportation manufacturing side, but making sure that people are able to access jobs. The lack of mobility across the city is still a huge issue. People are familiar with the idea of transit deserts, and that is the work still ahead that we hope to work with the CTA board on. But I'm here today to enthusiastically support the permanent adoption of the U.S. Employment Plan and its incorporation into procurements going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Galoth?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Gilloth. I'm the Jobs Campaign Organizer at Westside Health Authority, a grassroots group, and a member of Jobs to Move America. And I also came here to urge the CTA to adopt the permanent U.S. Employment Plan. I'm here today with Michaela Barrett of Black Workers Matter. Black Workers Matter is an independent group of workers that fights discrimination in hiring and on the job in Westside TIF industrial districts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For the last 20 years, I've organized with low-wage workers on the West Side, both U.S.-born and immigrant workers. The main goal has been to dismantle the widespread segregationist employment model in which companies use temp agencies to exploit immigrants and shut out U.S.-born workers. This unlawful model denies income to black communities while also isolating and hurting immigrant workforces through wage theft, safety hazards, and other abuses. Some of you may have heard of Black Workers Matters campaign at Ferrara Candy or heard of the current organizing at the Hostess Brands Industrial Bakery in Galewood. What's especially unacceptable in this segregationist employment model is that it's pervasive in TIFs, which ironically were created by diverting tax dollars on the promise, and here I'm quoting the Illinois TIF statute, on the promise to create permanent, well-paying jobs. So, as Black Workers Matter says, discrimination used to be free. Now we got to pay for it. Happily, the U.S. Employment Plan represents the polar opposite of that. It's very good policy. First, the plan incentivizes, measures, and holds accountable companies to do what TIF purports to do, but hasn't done often, namely to create permanent, well-paying jobs. And the U.S. Employment Plan does that through the entire supply chain, which is very important. And it brings us back to the west side. The new rail cars are being produced on the southeast side, but two west side companies supply seats to CTA buses and to the rail cars. That's a lot of jobs. So we're at a fork in the road. We can take the low road of the segregationist employment model, or we can take the high road of good jobs for the residents who are actually paying for the rolling stock in the first place, both as taxpayers and as riders. Let's take the high road. Let's make sure that public dollars for public transit benefit the public. Please support adoption of the permanent U.S. Employment Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Mr.
Great to
Chairman.
see you.
It's great to see you, and President Carter and Karen, and of course Kevin and Alex. So, thank you. I haven't met you, Dr. Reverend Miller, or Ms. Rosales, but you know, there's time. You know, I've grown up in Chicago and am all too familiar with our city's myriad problems. These problems include systemic racism, income inequality, as well as climate crisis. But we're getting smarter about solutions. I'm here today to support the CTA's first step towards crafting an agency-wide policy and equity policy, jobs and equity policy. This policy uses our public dollars to build a better future for all Illinoisans. It creates training and career paths for workers from historically marginalized communities, tackles infrastructure issues and the racial wealth gap in our neighborhoods. I once sat where you are and understand how important it is that taxpayer dollars are maximized for riders and communities alike. This new policy has the potential to ensure that public resources build high-quality transit infrastructure for riders and create much-needed jobs in our communities. This policy also comes at a crucial moment, with CTA poised to spend $2.9 billion on capital improvements over the next 5 years. As we know, employment is about more than just a job. The quality of the job and where it is located matters as well. Historic tendencies to promote job growth downtown have not benefited most majority Black communities. Our new mayor has a broad commitment to racial equity. The CTA's move toward a good jobs and equity policy is one concrete step towards creating living wage jobs with benefits and training for many Chicagoans who face barriers to employment. With this policy in place, the injection of capital investment will allow CTA to create training and apprenticeship opportunities for people who have been historically excluded from access to good middle-class manufacturing jobs. People of color, specifically Black and Latinx people, women, formerly incarcerated people, and veterans, among others. As part of this policy, the CTA needs to commit contractors to more transparency and accountability by requiring businesses bidding for contracts to provide information about the number, type, and location of jobs that will be created. To ensure success, the CTA must hold these contractors accountable. Contractors must include details about salaries, benefits, and plans to recruit and train historically marginalized workers. The CTA is the second largest transportation agency in the country. It has tremendous power to shape the national status quo when it comes to how agencies spend transit dollars. A permanent good jobs and equity policy at the CTA will be a win for all Illinoisans. More so, with this policy, the CTA will lead by example. Other government agencies need to follow suit and put the public back in public contracting. And I hope you will adopt this policy. So thank you for letting me come and talk to you today.
Well, let me just, first of all, Jackie, because one of the reasons I'm always happy to see you, and I also just want to thank Susan and Dan, and that is you're around to provide the historical context. You've been fighting this battle and been a champion around equity and inclusion for a long time. And as I look around and I see some of the people in the audience who are going to speak to this, you know, they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but I know you've been on this battlefield.
I've been fighting about 30
You've been on
years.
this battlefield for a long time, and it's so great when issues like this come up that, you know, for young people, having someone who has the historical context, someone who's been on the battlefield for a number of years to be able to share the knowledge and has been at this for a minute. And as you know, having been a former board member, I don't have to tell you what this capital bill means. You were on the board when, you know, we were having to use capital dollars for the operating budget. You were on this board and we had to really make some tough decisions. I think we didn't raise fares for 6 years, and even though it was tough, we knew it was the right thing to do for our riders. So again, thank you, and continue to stay in touch. You know Dover, you know, you got my cell. It hasn't changed since you were on the board, but we want to continue to monitor this, and hopefully under Dorval's leadership, CTA can be a pace setter and a trailblazer for other agencies around the country, as well as other agencies around the country, because you're absolutely right. Nothing is more important than trying to create local jobs for communities that have been left behind, and these are always good paying jobs. So as you continue to hear more and learn more, you know, just keep us informed. But I think I'm so thankful to Dorval for looking at this when he was at the federal, the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, and then I know he was also, when he was Chief of Staff for the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. So you've got champions here along with the board, as you said, four of the members you served with. So you know the board here, and we're committed to it. But thank you. It is always great to see you. Really
Thank you
is.
very much
All right,
for your
thank you.
hospitality.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Karen.
And thank you. And then our next, hold it, Jackie, I think I want to take a picture. Jackie, I think I want to take your picture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We should put that on your ID, Jackie. And we have two final speakers. Ms. Bear, Cassie Bear, would you like to step up? And then Bob Israel, am I pronouncing that correct, sir? Would you like to step up as well? And then you can speak after Ms. Bear does. Cassie?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman. My name is Cassie Byer. I'm the Illinois Director for Jobs to Move America. Our previous speakers really, I think, hit our point home, but I'm just going to put a couple of final notes on here. Jobs to Move America is a national nonprofit organization working in good jobs policies, specifically around public contracts. We worked very closely with the CTA on the 7,000 series contract, helping to make sure we're getting the most out of those taxpayer dollars that are really creating opportunities for folks who need access to good jobs to help support a family, send their kids to college, and really have the training and support they need to be successful when they enter manufacturing. We have offices in Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles, and Birmingham, Alabama, really working to create a comprehensive good jobs policy at some of the largest, most important transportation agencies like the CTA. We had a few speakers who weren't able to make it today, so I'm just going to touch on a couple of their points. I think in particular, the 7,000 series contract is, production has begun with up to 160 new jobs being created with training involved. Because of the work of the CTA, Jobs to Move America was able to bargain a landmark community benefits agreement to augment the good work that you were able to frame out for us. So we are currently working on building a pipeline for job seekers to train, hire, recruit, and retain those workers to make sure they have access to those jobs, specifically in the 10th Ward and surrounding areas. It's very exciting work. It will include the first ever pre-apprenticeship for railcar manufacturing in our country. So we're really pioneering some important work here in Chicago. I'll also add, because of the city's commitment to a 2040 transition and electrification of the CTA, there is a particularly interesting opportunity here to shape what electric bus manufacturing is going to look like in the future. A lot of folks assume because these are clean tech, this is going to be good jobs, there's going to be high standards, and that's just not the case unless we're setting those standards from the get-go. So it's interesting to think what a U.S. employment plan ahead of real investment in electric buses can look like to shaping that market. So those are good jobs from the get-go, that they're family-sustaining jobs from the get-go, and creating opportunities for folks who haven't always had them. Additionally, we look forward to working with the CTA to crafting and helping shape a community-informed policy that really sets parameters for having the most robust, most ambitious, and most impactful policy possible. We know LA Metro, who is the first agency to have considered making a permanent U.S. employment plan policy, has just finished theirs. We think CTA can build on that, can do bigger, can do better, and we look forward to helping shape that with you. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Israel?
Oh, okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for letting me address this distinguished board. I just wanted to come to let you guys be aware of the DBE contracting community is very excited about this. The largest capital improvement program, you guys finna go on $2.1 billion with a B capital improvement project, the largest in CTA history. But during the community outreach and lunch and learn series, the awarded contractor have been letting the DBA contractors know that they get paid when paid. And if you know anything about union jobs and payroll, it's not gonna work to be paid when paid. Sometimes 90 to 120 days. And small DBE contracts. I don't know about the big boys. Big boys could probably handle those payrolls and all that. But I'm not here to bash nobody either. I'm just here to let you guys know. I don't know if the language in the contract about pay when paid. I think it is. I don't know. But I was wondering if we can have some meetings about the smaller contracts that being billions of dollars, have some type of set aside where somebody don't have to wait 90 to 100 days, or sometimes pay when paid. I don't know what that means, but it don't sound too good. Pay when paid. And another thing about the unions, I think $1 billion of this is Barack Obama left $1 billion. That's federal dollars. And by this being a union town, I heard they forcing some of the small contractors to be, I ain't gonna say force. They want them to be in a union. I mean, PLA or something that involve PLA contract. I was wondering if it can be some project-specific contracts available. I know it's kind of late. The train might be out the road already, but I just wanted to let this board be a note, because I know CTA is, I've been talking to your guys, they on board with helping the community get these contracts. But if the language is in there saying pay when paid and they must be part of the union, that's going to leave a lot of black contractors out of it. I'm going to just let you know that. MBE, DBE, I don't care what letter you put on, but black contractors ain't going to be on that contract. And retainage, I even heard something about retainage. Now, if you, a demo contractor, I was at a meeting and he was like, why they gotta hold my money 2 years for retainage? And that might be 10%. That's his profit that they gotta hold for 2 years. But if he demo the building and demo, ain't nothing else to come look at. I mean, it's gone. So there's just a couple of things, President Carter, I just wanted to bring to you guys' attention. I know you guys is on them about, doing like the red line, that was successful. Want this big project to be successful. But I think there need to be some other meetings or some, I don't know, line stroking some of them contracts. And, hey, pay when paid, 90 to 120 days, that ain't gonna make it. As far as with these unions, sometimes I heard Project Pacific, I don't know if anybody ever did that, but the unions might don't want nobody to do that. And I just want to know if we can schedule some follow-up meetings to make sure this is going to be successful, because I ain't trying to hoop and holler about it.
Well, first of all, good morning, Bob.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you, man. Juan Pablo, the person you really need to get to know, and I'm going to have Juan meet with you, is Juan Pablo, who oversees our DBE program. I don't think we wait 100 days to pay our contractors, so if we're not paying them in 100 days, you shouldn't wait to get paid. And I understand you're absolutely right. Small contractors with 3, 5, 10, 15 workers, you can't wait sometimes 90 days, 100 days to get paid. But Juan Pablo is the person on a couple of issues. One, in terms of the timing around pay for small contractors. If there are issues, they need to be brought to his attention. Two, if there are issues with unions. I mean, I think that Dorval and I both have good relationships with labor, and if there are challenges that some of the contractors are having, you probably need to bring that again to Juan's attention so we can sit down with some of these contractors and work with them to see if we can sort of work through the issues of who having to be union. You're right, this was federal money. You're talking about the Red Purple Modernization Project, which we did end up getting under President Obama a little bit over $1 billion. And then we were able to get, TIF along the Red Purple Modernization Project as well. So that's going to be local money. We had help from the state in terms of getting that passed, city council. So a lot of players have been involved. But the one key person here is Juan. Have you met Juan before?
Yeah, that's why it made me come to this meeting. I spoke with Juan several times. He's doing the best he can, but when the question was brought at the most recent road show at this insurance agency, we mentioned about pay when paid. And then your contractor that's been awarded, he stepped in. Let me answer that. It's in the contract, pay when paid. And we like, hold on, can that be scratched? And I'll let you and Juan talk about
it. What he's basically saying, the contractor is saying to the subs, I can't pay you, the CTA pays me.
Correct.
I mean, in layman's term, that's what he was saying. But again, 90 to 120 days, I'm not sure that we're taking that long. Again, I don't want to, I think Juan could answer that, and I know Jeremy, who oversees the checkbook here, could answer that, but I've been here 10 years. I don't think we've ever waited 120 days. I don't even know if we're waiting 90 days. But again, I want to make sure you're talking with the right person to get the right answers. And here's the other thing that I would say: when you're not getting the answers, and not that you're going to always agree with the answer, but make sure you're touching base with us as an agency, because at the end of the day, we realize that regardless of what our contractors say or what you hear, it always comes back to CTA, and we're always glad as a board to hear those things. But if you could talk with Juan, and Juan, you and I have a conversation a little bit later about, how often do we pay our contractors? how is it worded in terms of when they pay the subcontractors? Because when Forrest was here, we went through this, the same thing on the red line extension, the
Okay.
red line reconstruction, I should say.
Yes, sir.
It was a 5-month project, and we wanted to be sure when you got, in fact, we met, I want to say on the second floor with a lot of the DBEs, and we said to them, this is 5 months. If there are issues coming up regarding pay, bring them to our attention right away. And we will say the same thing going forward on any projects. Don't wait till the end of the project if the,
I know,
contract.
that's why I'm here now to tell you, because I've been to the Lunch and Learn series, the contract has been awarded. They had Lunch and Learn, inviting out DBEs, they be saying pay when paid. You had the CTA Road Show, where you had everybody involved, I'm not gonna say name, but whoever they had, and they say it again, that pay when paid keep coming 90 to 100 days, keep being said. That's why it made me rush
You
down
can
here.
always come back to us.
No
Again,
problem.
We will be able to learn in my life. Trust but verify.
That's why I came here, that's
Trust
why I
but
came
verify.
here,
So
let
that's
the
why
board
I'm
know.
like, make sure you always come back to us and tell the DBEs that you work with to come back to the CTA at the end of the day, and Juan Pablo should be able to get you the facts around pay. And then again, as I said, with the labor issue of contractors being unionized, you need to try to work again with Juan and work with us to work through those.
Yeah, we spoke on that. I just wanted to let the board be aware. And I appreciate you guys letting me speak, because it's a lot of money finna come and everybody excited.
Yep, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all 7 speakers for coming today. Very interesting. And that concludes the public comment section of today's board meeting. Chairman?
All right, thank you, Greg. The next order of business today is commendations. President Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. So each year, the American Public Transportation Association, or APTA, gathers the best rail workers from transit agencies across the United States and Canada to compete in what is referred to as the APTA Rail Rodeo. This is a good-natured contest where rail experts can showcase their skills and abilities in the field. CTA has always participated in the rodeo and has always been well represented. We're always very incredibly proud of our employees who compete and take the opportunity to showcase their impressive rail skills, demonstrating why our agency is second to none. As many of you know, the participants who go to this rodeo are actually presented to the board in the fall as winners of the rodeo here at CTA. Those individuals are the ones who actually compete in the APTA Rail National Contest, so to speak, that basically picks who the best of the best are throughout our entire industry. This is a very competitive process, and I can tell you as a CEO of one of the major transit agencies in the country, all of us feel that we get bragging rights when our employees are the ones who end up basically beating the best and winning in these competitions. It has been a while since CTA has actually won these competitions, which is why it gave me such great pleasure to take this opportunity this morning to introduce you to some of the shining stars at CTA, our rodeo team, who took home not 1, but 2 first place awards in their respective categories at the 2019 APTA International Rail Rodeo this past June in Toronto, Canada. And so I can tell you that I'm bragging now, and I'm bragging to all my colleagues, because not only do we have the best here at CTA, but we have the best in the country. And I'm very excited about the effort and the success that this team has had. I don't want to gloss over how important these achievements are. This is the first time both rail transit operators and rail maintenance workers were able to win first place in their respective competitions at the same APTA Rail Rodeo. So I'm very proud to recognize them here at this time, and as I call your name, I would ask that you all please stand and remain standing. Rapid Transit operators Matthew Thomas and Roger Collins. Rail Operations Competition Coach Arvista Wright Sanders. Rail Maintenance Workers Adrian Camacho, Sergio Ramirez, and Malgorzata, did I say that correctly? Malgorzata Khrushchevka. Rail Maintenance Competition Coach Grant Macy. It is because of these exceptional employees' hard work and dedication and talent that we are so pleased to honor them here. Employees. Rapid Transit operators Matthew and Roger took first place for operational customer service by working as an organized and efficient team at the rodeo. Their competition coach, Arvesta, assisted Matthew and Roger with important training materials and practiced with each of them regularly to ensure that they would be prepared for the big competition. Roger works out of the 95th Street Terminal, and Matthew comes to us from the Forest Park Terminal. Arvesta is a rail instructor who works out of Jefferson Park. Adrian, Sergio, and Malgorzata are railcar repairers who also took first place in the After Rail Rodeo, this time in the LED headlight wiring competition. Guided by their coach, Chief Rail Equipment Engineer Grant Macy, these three dedicated professionals worked as a team to assemble, measure, and install LED headlights on rail cars and trains, beating out all of the other participants that they faced. Adrian works out of the Harlem Yard, Sergio works out of the Des Plaines Yard, and Malgorzata is currently stationed at the Rosemont Yard, and Coach Grant works at Skokie Shop. To each of you, and on behalf of Chairman Peterson and our board, as well as the entire CTA family of employees, we want to thank you for your commitment to our great agency and for proving once again that the Chicago Transit Authority is among the best in the world. At this time, I'd like to invite all of you up for a commemorative photo, and we should give them a great round of applause for their significant accomplishment.
Okay, if everybody would please be seated. We're about to get back to like the regular part of the board, I guess. More routine stuff.
Our next order of business today is the approval of the July 17, 2019 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. Any comments? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 17, 2019.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Abstain.
Abstain. Mr. Silva abstains. Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
Yes, you were here. That motion passes with 4 yes votes and 1 Silva abstention.
All right. The next order of business is a board matter. I think the ordinance was previously distributed. Any comments? Greg?
Yes, it
I
was.
don't know if you, okay. So I don't know if I need to
I
state
think
that somebody else
I think the
needs.
vice chairman should ask for that motion. Since she's going to sign the ordinance,
All right.
assuming the votes are there. we'll
All
see.
right, okay.
All right, well, this is good, this is an honor. So I'll make a motion, yes, to approve an ordinance re-electing Terry Peterson, chairman of the Chicago Transit Board.
And seconded. Reverend Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Irvine?
I heartily vote yes.
Okay, Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
And Vice Chairman Alvarado Rosales?
If there was 150%, I'd do it.
Right. That motion passed, that motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Let me just, first of all,
Congratulations.
thank my fellow board members. I can't believe it's been almost 10 years. I swear. You're talking about time flying by. October of 2009, when Mayor Daley first appointed me, and the 10 years have just gone by. And I've just been blessed and honored to serve with incredible board members, passionate about transit. I've had 2 incredible, really 3. I've served with 3 presidents. When I first got here was Rich Rodriguez, and then, of course, Forrest came on board. And now having the opportunity, as a matter of fact, I first met Durville, I want to say, when I was in the mayor's office. So this has been an honor. And the staff, I want to tease Veronica, we were together at CTA. So it's always at CHA, and that was going back to 2000. So it's always great, too. And it's interesting about public service, and that is, as you continue to serve, you always run into good people who are doing great things. Brian, who was at Transportation when I first heard about a Brian Steele, was over at Transportation, and Greg and I met in 1995 when I had just
94.
Was it 94?
94.
94, oh my God. Now I'm telling you I'm getting old now because I started working with Valerie. You're right, it was 94. I just got my master's degree in public administration from Roosevelt. Greg was one of the individuals I interviewed with for assistant commissioner over neighborhood services with the Department of Planning and Development.
Pat Dow had just left.
Exactly.
Pat Dow had just
left. And fast forward. So again, I'm honored. Thank you for nominating me again, and I look forward to continuing to serve with you. Thank you. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget met this morning. The committee reviewed the finance reports and approved the July committee minutes. The committee also reviewed the following ordinance. An ordinance authorizing free rides for the first day of school in 2019 and 2020. An ordinance authorizing a special pricing pilot program at the authorities Cumberland and Roseman Park and ride locations. An ordinance authorizing a sublease to Decennial Group LLC of a portion of property located at 120 Northwest Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance consenting to a further sublease of a portion of Suite 1150 located at 567 West Lake Street, Chicago, Illinois. An ordinance amending the Chicago Transit Authority procurement policy and procedures to include a contracting careers opportunity policy. An ordinance authorizing an agreement with City Year, Inc. for volunteer service activities. The committee also reviewed 5 purchase and sales award with contracts. The committee approved all the ordinance and contracts, placed them all on the omnibus, and recommend board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second?
Second, Reverend Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a construction report. Bill?
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. And with me today,
Hi, my name is Steve Hands. I work for the RPM department.
Juan Pablo Prieto, Senior Manager, Diversity Programs.
we go in our first project, as we usually discuss, is our East Lake, Milwaukee, Illinois substation upgrade project. Project remains within budget and on schedule. As I've talked in recent months, the focus is entirely at East Lake here. To the pictures, the first picture here shows you the courtyard. In previous months, I've shown you the demolition of the old courtyard. And now this is the restoration for the installation of the new courtyard. You can see against the backdrop of the substation a black kind of matting there, and that's waterproofing so that the earth fill and stuff will protect water from coming into our electrical substation, as well as the structural CMU walls that are being installed for that topping slab. In this next picture, last month we brought online transformer rectifier lineup number 4, which is the farthest set of equipment. Now that's the equipment we use to convert our Commonwealth Edison power to our DC power. And in this picture, new lineup number 3 is in the process of being installed. That's the one next to it with the panel down. This lineup is currently in a commissioning phase. It's burning, it's actually on, burning kind of in the background. It's not supplying our system as of yet, and in the upcoming weeks will be commissioned and brought online as the new equipment there's ultimately 4 lineups. This is a fairly large substation, and there's some redundancy built into it. So. Our next project is our Union Blue Signal Upgrade Project, which remains on schedule and on budget. We continue with our line cut weekends and the installation of the traction power duct bank here in this first picture. So part of a twist on the signal project is, since we're doing a lot of underground work associated with the installation of new signal cables and wayside manholes and such forth, we had them do a replacement of our duct bank for our Edmond substation. So this connects the wayside cabling for our third rail power on the railroad back to the substation, which is across the highway. So this duct bank then will have new cables pulled through it, which will allow us to increase the capacity of the cables and the amount of power we're pushing out to that rail. As demand of power has kind of increased with demand of service out there, having more capacity in cable is really important for the robust and controllable power on that railroad. So. And here's some installation of conduit for our messenger cabling between our new signal houses. This ultimately gets poured in with concrete and filled in, and this allows signal house to communicate to each other. And the other picture here shows a part of that duct bank being installed underneath the track. This is right up around Foster and Central, where we have a middle track, and so the duct bank actually we had to pull up some of the track and install that duct bank underneath it. Our next project are Belmont Jefferson Park Station improvements. As I've mentioned in recent months, focus has been on Jefferson Park, and I'm excited to say that we are completed at this point with the opening of the south terminal there. We opened back in mid-July, and that service now has that center pier refurbished canopy there with arc glass shelters on both the north terminal and that center terminal. Here's a picture of the new canopy structure of that south terminal and the ADA accessible islands. Now that brings this bus terminal to be 100% accessible for the first time ever, which is a huge accomplishment. It's a beautiful kind of protective enclosure there, and those islands are really important for our customers being able to gain access to those buses, as it is a major facilitated terminal. And here is that underpassage between the two halves of the terminal that leads back to the rail station. It has some wonderful, unique LED lighting here, which I actually have a little video for you. We can do a whole spectrum of lighting changes here that goes through. Right now it's set for blue, but we can run any kind of color combination or have it in some level of cycle if we wanted to. It's kind of a modernization. It allows for some accents off of the artwork. And here's some pictures of the art glass. The artist is Jamie Paulus. The inspiration for the artwork was the local Copernicus Center right there, Nicholas Copernicus, and the center of the universe being the sun idea. And so if you look at the main shelter in this next picture, you can see that sun in the center of the shelter there and the radiating light beams off of it. And then they took on some thematic things like comfort zone being a shelter where people could seek comfort and while they're waiting for, in the inclement weather. So they're beautiful pieces of installation. Our next project is our Lakeline South Main Line track improvement project. We continue with line cut weekends and renovation of the track. We had our third line cut on the Lake Street here. This first picture shows you street level underneath the construction as it's occurring overbed. So we take a pretty large footprint as part of these shutdowns on the weekend at street level, and part of that is because we have to be able to get the track down and off of there, and ultimately we need to get all that material back up underneath, and there's a whole bunch of the installation that occurs actually from underneath. So the ties are hooked to the structure to hold them in place, and that installation occurs from lifts underneath. Here's some pictures of the workers installing spikes to secure the steel inside guard. Those are those kind of two inner rails that the train doesn't actually ride on. They're just kind of protective rails, and we use them as part of our negative return path for our substation power. Here's some wood guard being installed that goes on the exterior of kind of the running tracks. And in here they're installing what we call C-bonds. So this goes around the joints of the rail to allow the signal that we broadcast through the rail to the train to actually transfer from rail to rail. And my next project is 95th Terminal Improvement Program. We continue with most of the focus being on escalator 1. Here's some punch list work that's going on. They're installing mats at the north terminal off the west commuter bridge. You can see kind of there, those are the finished mats at the entrance, collect debris and water as people come in and out of the terminal. And then they're installing traffic signals on the mast out there for the terminal on the south side. And then here's the escalator 1. It's coming together and should be going in service shortly. And I'm introducing a new project this month. This is our electric bus en route charging stations. It is part of a unique construction procurement that's joint with our electric bus procurement that the board has previously approved. It includes the installation of 2 electrical substations, one at Chicago Austin bus turnaround and one at Navy Pier turnaround, and fast charging bus stations for those new electric buses. So the buses will be able to pull up to these fast chargers and be fully recharged within a 15-minute time frame while waiting in the terminal for turnaround. And it also includes a fast charging station at the Chicago Avenue bus garage. So when the buses are cycling in and out of that garage, it can get recharged, as well as a series of slow charging stations so the buses can be recharged overnight. This is kind of a unique thing. The infrastructure piece of this is about $14 million, and it's actually awarded to the bus manufacturer, Proterra Mortensen, who then is subbing it out to a series of general contractors. It is a design-build contract. It's the first of these installations we've ever done. There's been a lot of planning as we've been working with them through a hazard analysis to try because this is the first introduction of this in our system, and so a lot of thought put into how it interfaces in the public and how it's installed and how we maintain it. Here's some pictures of the work going on currently at Chicago. So they're installing the new electrical ductwork that will be coming from the electrical room ultimately to the bays where the buses are charged and where their charging stations will be. And here's some of the work that's currently going on at Chicago Austin. We have not broke ground at Navy Pier yet. The focus right now is on Chicago Austin on the west side. This is the foundation for that new substation. It is similar in power and size capacity to what we provide for our trains, to be able to get the voltage to make that 15-minute turnaround and the multiple charging stations at those bus turnarounds at a given point in time. So it's kind of a new project that we'll be keeping you abreast of now that we're kind of into full swing on construction. And with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
Before we move over to RPM, since this is the last time we're reporting on Belmont Jeff Park, we wanted to give you a closing readout on how the DBE attainment went. The DBE goal on the contract was 30%, and the contractor, through the awarded dollars, committed to 32.3% DBE participation. So they did exceed the goal, and we do have them on track to meet that commitment.
So again, my name is Steve Hands. I work for the CTA RPM department. I'm here to give a bit of a update on the current status of the RPM program projects. So to start with, we're going to talk a little bit about the RPM advanced contracts, which include advanced utility relocation and demolition of properties ahead of the major construction activity. So demolition is actually currently in closeout. All of the properties that were part of that advanced demolition have come down. So utility work is the remaining aspect of this advanced contract piece. I'm proud to say that the ComEd duct bank work, which is the majority of the underground civil work, is now 98% complete. We're showing a photo here of one of the last pieces of duct bank work, the trench in Bryn Mawr Avenue, that's being done. And we continue to see the progress on the utility work moving forward, and are on track to have that substantially complete this year. Onto Broadway substation upgrades. So this work includes rehabilitating the existing substation building as well as replacing and upgrading the equipment. So we've been giving updates, for the last few months. Work is nearing completion on this project, tight to the original schedule, but on budget, and certainly in advance of the design build contractor work. And so we're very, very happy to see that moving forward. The photos you see here are some of the tuck pointing work on the wall of the substation building, as well as some new electrical panels inside that building. As we prepare for the beginning of construction, it's really important for the CTA and to inform the community about what construction will entail. And so with that in mind, we provided this update slide on some of the major work that we've done in July and August as we prepare for construction that is expected to start in September for the Red Purple Bypass section of the project. So as part of that, we've conducted a variety of outreach activities and really providing with a goal of providing customized, granular information for those community members that have the potential to be affected by this work, that are adjacent to the project. And so this slide details some of the sidewalk pop-ups that we conducted between July 15th and 27th. We had 9 actual events, and we reached over 1,500 individuals as part of that pop-up activity, where we really just located individuals on the streets and the sidewalks near where the project will be conducted, and let people know that if they had any questions, they could ask us right there and then and learn more about the project. This was really successful to reach some individuals that had never come to any of our public events in the past. We also followed that up with major open house activities on July 31st and August 1st. We were able to have very detailed conversations with over 150 attendees at these meetings, where we talked about exactly where the foundations are going to go, what the equipment will look like that it will be used in the area, the duration of the anticipated construction, which streets and alleys may be closed, and then what alternative parking locations will be provided for residents and businesses that are impacted by those alley closures. So that's been a huge success. We heard from those meetings a lot of positive feedback about the format of the meeting and the information that we were able to provide at those meetings. So this is in addition to the regular outreach that we do as a whole, where we talk not only about outreach for community members that could be affected, but also for the public interested in workforce opportunities as part of this project, as well as our small and disadvantaged business community to make sure that they are aware of opportunities to work on this project. So this slide will be continuing to give updates monthly. This is a current update for activities mostly in July that we've conducted. I wanted to highlight in particular workforce activities that we conducted with the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center Trades Expo and Opportunity Fair, which occurred on July 13th, as well as the RPM Small Business Education Series, which is ongoing through September. If you have specific questions about any of those, obviously Juan Pablo's here. He has more detailed information about how those events have gone to date.
Just a couple of things for me. One, thank the entire team for the update. Just a little bit curious, when you hold the forums, one, do you guys have a sheet that says most frequently asked questions? Like, for example, because having Bob Israel raise the issue he raised about how often do subs get paid, that was a big issue for us in a 5-month project as it relates to the reconstruction of the red line from 22nd Street to 95th Street. Do you have, I'm wondering, when you go in, now that you've had a number of meetings, have you been been able to put together, because again, I gotta believe that whether you're on the south side or west side, north side, you're hearing the same issues or questions come up, so that when you go to the following meeting, you've already got, guess what, frequently asked questions. How fast does CTA pay? We pay in 45 to 60 days. You know, do you have to be a union contractor? Yes, and we will help you with that. You know, just trying to get ahead of some of the things, because I gotta believe, again, what we're talking about is diversity, inclusion, equity issues where women, you know, African-American, underrepresented companies that haven't been able to get access. Are we trying to make sure that when we go out, we're not just going out having a listening session where people have to come here, that you're getting ahead of it by saying, guess what, and we heard it, you know, in Representative Arroyo's community, we're probably gonna hear it on the west side in State Representative Art Turner's district as well. Do you do that?
We don't have a specific FAQ sheet. We do incorporate it into the next roadshow, right? The questions that we get, we work with the contractor because it's their presentation, but we work those questions into the roadshow, so we do address them. But we can look to put together an FAQ sheet that we can pass out at the roadshow, so that everyone has kind of the frequently asked questions along with the answers and the resources that they can take advantage of.
The other thing that I would suggest, and you might already be doing this too, I know that, you know, when we have these kind of forums where you go out and talk about, here's the opportunity, what we're gonna be doing, hopefully you're also taking pictures and dropping something in the local community newspaper. There's that old saying that good news travels nowhere, bad news travels everywhere.
Yeah.
But once you've gone in, you've had a 2-hour meeting, there have been opportunities, putting something in the local newspaper, it doesn't cost a lot, but it lets the community know, people who might not have been able to make it. Oh, by the way, CTA had a meeting at Truman College. You know, here were some of the participants. You know, just, I think, again, trying to just make sure that we're cascading throughout the community the impact that we're trying to have in terms of, you know, trying to renovate the red, purple modernization as well as build projects throughout the city. I just think sometimes we know it internally, we get to see these great briefings and great photos, but I don't know if we do, you know, and I know this gets to Brian and Steve, you know, sort of making sure that the community at large knows that, guess what, here's going on. And I think sometimes getting that in the local press, local community newspaper is another way to communicate the efforts that are going on by CTA in those communities.
Yeah, we're definitely documenting the meetings that we are having, and we're working with Brian and Steve to put together kind of a synopsis of the meetings and how they went, how many DBEs and SBs we reached out to and talked to make sure that the community does know that we were out talking to them, and that's not the only time that we'll be out talking to them. It'll be a continuing conversation about opportunities, like you said, not only on RPM, but on all of our capital construction projects.
And Mr. Chairman, it's a model that we'll certainly, you know, look to replicate as we roll out the major state capital program and those opportunities, as well as Chris and I often talk, we sink and swing together between RPM and infrastructure. And the best practice one's doing is something the other's looking to replicate in their own model. So.
That's why I mentioned it.
I was gonna say, Chairman, I think that's 2 points. I mean, for both of them, a great idea. Local newspapers in those neighborhoods are usually looking for a picture and just a paragraph of something that happened in their community. And it frankly will go a long way for us, because you're right, a lot of times people don't know we've been in there, and you know, it goes a long way. And then the FAQ, if you do end up putting something together, I'd love to get a copy. I think it'd be great for us, because we probably get a lot of similar questions that we don't know how to answer. And so if you've got a standard answer that we can utilize, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that way the DBE isn't waiting on what the contractor says, you know,
Yes.
again. But, I mean, great presentation. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is new business. Is there any new business to come before the board, Greg?
No, sir.
With no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. I can't believe the time has, yeah, thank you. I can't believe how fast.